So first of all, you're all very welcome. My name, as you already know, is Ronan Collins, and you'll see here my title is IR. This is it doesn't mean Irish, although if you see behind me, oops, this way, you can see the Irish flag hanging sideways. IR means engineer, so I'm technically a qualified civil and structural engineer. I graduated in 1996, a long, long time ago, in Dublin, in Ireland. I lived and worked in Ireland until 2000. And then from 2000 until 2016, I lived and worked in Hong Kong. And then in 2016, I moved to Malaysia. And you can see a picture here of my wife and my son. My wife is from Malaysia. She's from a place called Ipoh. So she's Chinese, or Malaysian Chinese, as they say here. So my son is obviously Eurasian. And you can see here where he's stolen my PPE. And he was walking around the house with a 6-foot long level and managed to knock over a few things, but he's got a very innocent smile. So we moved back to Malaysia in 2016, and I'm now working for a company called Gamuda. And Gamuda are a very large infrastructure contractor. We've been working on MRT projects. We've been working on marine projects. We're currently bidding for airport projects. So we do very large scale infrastructure projects. We do a little bit of buildings, but mainly infrastructure projects. So that's a little bit about me. What I'm going to get you guys to do this morning is, if you just quickly check your chat, I'm going to send you a link to a Google form. So the first part is to define your role. So let me know whether you're working for an owner, whether you're a professional, so an architect, an engineer, QS, whether you're working for a main contractor or a subcontractor, specialist subcontractor, or if you've got the title of BIM manager or BIM coordinator. And if you're just understudy or studying, which one are you actually hoping to become when you graduate? So let's know which role you have in industry. And once you've done that, let me know how many of you used certain technologies. So when I say use, I've actually experienced it. So either use some software or use some hardware. And you can see here quite a lot of different technologies that have been listed for construction technology. So let me know if you've had any particular experience of using those technologies. Okay, so then this one's going to take a couple of minutes. So what I'd like to know is what you think BIM is. So I'm not looking for a copy and paste from the international standards. Just let me know what you think BIM is, whether you think it's a design tool, whether you think it's a process, what you think it's for. And then once you've kind of explained what you think BIM is, I want you to rank the 5 things listed here in terms of their importance. So you can only pick one in each column. So which one is most critical to the success of BIM on a project? Is it internet access and cloud, training, standards and processes, software and hardware, or people and their skills and experience? So please let me know what you think BIM is, and please let me know what you think are the most critical issues. So a lot of people have done data analytics. That's interesting. That's not the number I was expecting. Seems that we've got more project managers and architects than anybody else, which is good. It also means I can't crack any of my architect jokes. So we got 19 responses. So let's see. So let's go down through some of these. 21% of you claim to be project managers. So you've all got to get to grips with the document I sent you. We got 19% of architects. So definitely no architects jokes today. And that means we got 4 architects. I can't defend 4 people. And the other big chunk here are quantity surveyors. So some of you have got experience of BIM, which is great. A lot of you have got experience with VR. Just to let you know, we've been using, it's not in my presentation today, but we've been using VR for safety training. And this is something that Professor Rowlandson put me onto a while ago. And we're working with some of the guys in Australia to look at some opportunity for doing that. So VR is very powerful when it comes to training people. And we're also using it for tunnel operations training. So we're actually using it to train the guys in the tunneling machines, because we do a lot of tunnel boring machine work. So they're using it on that. We got one person who's done augmented reality. Again, I don't have anything in my presentation, but we're doing an example on 2 projects at the moment where we've taken very detailed Revit models and we've used Unity and we've converted them into augmented reality. Now, we've not done an entire project because it doesn't work. We're doing it plant room by plant room. So for every major plant space, we create a AR model, and then we share that across iPads, because we found that the Android devices are not as powerful. So the iPads are much better. Drones and photogrammetry, I'm going to cover in my presentation, and a little bit about laser scanning. 3D printing models. So those of you who've done 3D printing models, just quickly on the chat, was that for prototyping or was that for design? Because I've seen it used mainly by architects for doing design presentation, but I've seen a few contractors playing with it for prototyping. So trying to work out bridge systems or trying to work out temporary works. So does anybody want to share on the work chat what they used it for? Yeah, great. Wendy's used it for design. I think that's going to become more and more common as the cost comes down. And data analytics, this is something that's become my bread and butter in my organization. So this is becoming a huge challenge and a huge issue. So I'm going to touch on that in my presentation this morning. So we've now got 23 responses. So let's have a look at what people think BIM is, and I will clear up any misconceptions if I can. So yes, it's definitely a collaboration tool. So Ellie has used 3D printing for studying joint details and facade fixing details. Oh, wow, that's cool. So Ellie, and you must have been working at quite a high level of detail in those models. So you must have been printing at 1:1 scale or 1:2 scale, I guess. And when we've done printing before, the first thing we found was the resolution of printers is not great for doing details. So I'm guessing you've been doing quite big prints at quite kind of high resolution. So yes, BIM is a collaboration tool. The thing about it being a collaboration tool, you have to make sure the contracts are set up for collaboration. So what we see in industry is BIM is not working because the contracts are not set up to be collaborative. And what I mean by that is you will get collaboration between the architect and the engineer for sure, but you don't always get collaboration between the architect, the engineer, and the contractor. Steve, can you turn off your mic because we can hear a lot of background noise? Unless you want to chime in.
Well, actually, I was just going to say we used 3D printing on one of the vents for the MTR, and the 3D printing had to be used because nobody could work out what was intended to be built. This vent had probably 5 different levels to it. It was a bizarre shape like a ship's funnel, and until the contractor 3D printed from the drawings, it was impossible to know what was to be built and which bits were actually in the wrong place. And so
wow.
We built a 5-level 3D model, and then we tried to put the false work in for it. And it was very, very complicated. But the 3D model made clear that the designer had got it all wrong, and it was a real mess. So it was actually a very impressive example.
So BIM is a tool for better information management. That's a good way of describing it. What people have started to realize it's not about models, or at least it's not all about models. So the model is the fundamental building block, but the information is what's actually much more valuable. So yes, BIM is a better information management tool. It certainly is a big step from traditional construction to technology, and it's not a step. It's a step that's not going away. So once people have made the step, they are very reluctant to go back, and you'll see some examples in the presentation today. It's a tool to facilitate construction information sharing with multiple parties, usually via collaboration medium. Okay, so I'm going to show you an example of that collaboration medium. I've got 2 examples I can show you. An integrated technology incorporating design and construction. Yeah, tool to gather and organize information in a digital way. The most important thing here is it's a tool, but if it's not used correctly, it becomes a weapon. And it can actually become disruptive and counterproductive if not used correctly. So people need to be trained how to use these tools and how to use them correctly in order to actually get value. BIM does involve standardization. Yeah, again, rich 3D modeling, digital representation of project. Yeah. So a platform that makes easy access to all information related to construction project. Okay, so BIM itself is not the platform. We describe BIM as a process. So BIM is the process of generating models, generating information. The platform for accessing information is called a common data environment. So the platform for sharing information is the common data environment, or CDE, and I'll show you an example of that. So a 3D model of additional information assigned to form. Yeah. So what we're finding is that the model has got information in the model, but it's also actually better to move the information away from the models and link it back. So what we're finding is that you're actually better off having databases running separately from the models and have one key between the model and the database rather than trying to put all the information into the modeling technology. So we're trying to work out ways where you can divorce the modeling technology from the information technology, but build links between them. So we don't want all the information in the model. And some people have got this completely wrong in some of the specifications. So when you see some of the documents from some of these client organizations where they want Revit with all the information in Revit, that's the wrong approach. At least in my opinion. So everything I say this morning is my opinion. It's not necessarily, can all be argued with. BIM is no longer a new technology. BIM has been around for 20 years. So it's not new anymore. But it is technology to improve the efficiency of projects and reduce cost. So this is a great sentence, right? It's a new technology to improve efficiency of project and reduce costs. That's the punchline. That's the sales pitch. And then this is the caveat: when it has been used correctly. Unfortunately, in the last 10, 15 years, I've not seen BIM make huge improvements to the efficiency of projects or make dramatic reductions of costs. In fact, I've not seen any evidence that's reducing costs, at least not actual evidence. And primarily because it has not been correctly used. And that is down to a number of issues. And none of the problems with BIM are technology related. So when you say it's a new technology, the problem with BIM is the process, and the problem with BIM is the contracts, and the problem with BIM is the lack of experience, and the problem with BIM is the lack of collaboration across the industry. So if it's used correctly, yes, it will reduce costs, and yes, it can improve the efficiency, but nobody's done that yet. And I've got a few theories on that as to why. So you've also said it's a process, a platform, a way of doing things in a digital environment and collaboration manner. So you're all in and around the right place. It absolutely benefits every phase of the project lifecycle. True, except it's only used for design and construction. So there's very few examples where it's actually jumped from construction into operations. So there's been a number of people have tried to make that work, and they've not all been successful. Information management, yeah. In my opinion, BIM is an effective tool for data collection and management and helpful for immediate monitoring of all party managers. Yep, there's definitely a supervision part to it. Information management, it's not just modeling, that's true. It facilitates construction, yeah. We'll see some examples this morning. It's an important tool for architects to allow clients, collaborators, and other stakeholders in design to create building environments. Yes. Yes, it's an important tool for architects. It's equally important for the engineers, and this is the problem. So a lot of people that have seen BIM think it's a design visualization tool, think it's a design presentation tool, and a lot of engineers think it's an architect's tool, and it's not for them. So it is an important tool for the architects, and we've got a few architects in our group, but it's equally important for the rest of the industry. Convenience, collaborative at the early stage. BIM cannot use in design, but not just used in design, I assume, whole life cycle. Virtual building, yeah, and BIM is an advanced technology to minimize design problems and thus reduce construction cost. I wish. So a lot of people who specify BIM expect to see less design problems, and then they're terribly disappointed when they find all those problems on site. So what we're seeing is, and I'll show you some examples hopefully, is that the BIM can be used to identify design problems, but unless those design problems are solved and fixed and coordinated and ironed out, you don't actually reduce the construction costs. So it's very, very important that people actually find the issues and then resolve them. Right, so let's have a quick look at what you guys think are the most critical issues. So let me first of all say what I think the sequence should be. First and foremost, it's people. Secondly, it's training. Thirdly, it's to have standards processes. Fourth, it's software and hardware. And last but not least is the internet. So the most critical thing for BIM is people. And while this is not a quiz, 9 of you agree, and 9 of you think it's the second most important. So you're pretty much on the money. Any project that's been successfully implementing BIM has got the right people with the right skill, experience, and competency. Now, here's the caveat. That does not mean employing BIM consultants, BIM managers, and BIM experts. That means training up existing architects, existing engineers, existing technicians, existing construction professionals to be BIM competent. So the only way that BIM succeeds in our industry is by training up the existing industry. So this is why the people is so important. So I said that training education is the second most important, and we've got 5 who think it's critical, which is great. And we got 5 who agree with me that's number 2. And we've got another 6 that think it's third in the ranks. So training and education is absolutely crucial. So once you've identified the people and the skill sets, you then have to train them and educate them. And unfortunately, we're doing a really bad job of this. So our industry is not great at doing training education. Despite the fact that we've got 40 people in this call, there should be 400 people in this call, in my opinion. Then we've got standards and processes. So you can see that a lot of you are ranking as fourth. Standard and processes are absolutely necessary. You need to have standard workflows, standard procedures, because unless you can standardize it across all the different organizations, people will continue their behaviors of what they've been doing themselves. So they will continue to have their file naming convention. They'll continue to have their folder structure. They'll continue to have their way of sharing files. They'll continue to have their way of writing minutes for meetings, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you need to have a project-wide agreement on all the different procedures, standards, processes, how you share information, how you produce information, how you name information has all got to be standardized. Once you've got those three in place, the software, the hardware, and the internet are easy. The internet can be fixed with money, and all the software and hardware that we could possibly need is all available. It's just making sure it's used in the right way. So thank you all very much for filling in the survey, and I hope that my assessment has been somewhat useful. And we've got 25 responses. So anybody who has not had a chance to fill it in, you can also do that later on. The plan this morning is to go through a number of different topics. And before I do that, I just want to share with you the importance of the people in the industry. And I'm going to share with you some examples. So this gentleman is a gentleman called John Lim. John is probably similar age to a lot of you. He's in his early 20s and mid 20s. John is one of our graduates. So Gamuda has a program where we actually train people to, we pay for their education. So we send them to university and they get a degree. John has a first class honors degree in mechanical engineering. And when he returned to work in Malaysia, he studied in the UK. When he returned to work in Malaysia, his job was on the tunneling operations side. And he was given a project to use QR codes, which you can see the picture of here, and a QR code reader to track the segment lining. So I was asked to go down and help them out. So I was down working on some of the issues around the project. And here you can see we had put barcodes in some of the segments, but we're using QR codes. But when I was there, John showed me his workstation. And this is the control room for the tunnel boring machine. So we have a site office. This was Christmas 2018, I guess. And you can just about make it out, but on there's a screen, two screens down here on the bottom. And me being very curious, I was asking John what all his different screen was. And John, unwittingly and naively, said, "Oh, this is the new software we've written for the tunnel boring machine." And I said, "Oh, what software have you written?" "Oh, we've written a software to automatically drive the tunnel boring machine." Now, bearing in mind, up until this point, tunnel boring machines are manually driven and remain so. So if you are involved in tunneling operations, you will be basically underground in a tunnel boring machine, and you will have an operator and they will be driving the machine, and they will be making sure it's following the right path, it's drilling at the right speed, and it's removing material at the right amount. John and two of his colleagues basically developed from the ground up software to actually drive the tunnel boring machine automatically or autonomously. So Gamuda are the first, at least to our knowledge, the first people to develop software internally for self-driving tunneling machines. And this was quite an innovation. And what was discovered was that this software renders the tunneling machines more accurate. It rendered the tunneling operations more efficient, and it rendered the pressure on reduced the pressure on the operators, because they weren't having to constantly monitor the machines. So the software was constantly monitoring the machine, and then the operators are monitoring the software to make sure things were going to plan. So I got involved, first of all, to make sure that John's bosses knew how clever he was. And then they basically submitted the technology with the team. And here you can see the team. This is John and his colleagues, and this is their boss, Hao Wei, and this is the tunneling judge. We won an award end of last year for the autonomous tunnel boring machine, which was developed in Gamuda. And it basically won the Technical Product and Equipment Innovation of the Year award at the International Tunneling Awards. Now, the reason I'm showing you this is that my motivation is to find guys like Justin and John and make sure that they get the accolades they deserve. And that's a crucial part of the success of technology in construction. A lot of you have done some very clever stuff that nobody knows about. So I'm very happy to celebrate what these guys have done and to tell you about their technology innovation, because it does two things. One, it inspires you, hopefully, to go and do something else. And two, it inspires them to keep doing it. So they keep getting the accolades and they keep doing it. So I want to make sure that people are rewarded for their innovations. And the next picture here, as you can see, is my smiley face in the middle beside my colleague, Nick Moorcock. This was in October last year, and we won an award for our use of drones and photogrammetry, and I'm going to show you what we've done in the morning. But again, this is unfortunately not the guys who do the work. Myself and Nick are the management. The guys who do the work, you will see examples of them in the presentation. But this award has been brought back to Malaysia and celebrated with the team who actually justifiably won the award. So we believe in celebrating our winners, and it's not about bragging, it's about motivating people to innovate and keep going forward.